We're gonna go through that drill on the rower. We're gonna make sure we've really got that leg drive down before we add the arms in. When we're over at the toes to bar, we're thinking about balling up and not frying out those hip flexors. Over on the wall, aggressive knee and hip extension to use that lower half, hands underneath the ball instead of on the outside. Time under tension is king on those cleans. Do not get lazy and sloppy, be a little dynamic with that hip extension to get the bar up, and then have that buddy over at the rings to make sure that you are doing all the stuff that we always talk about, that big hip extension, fast turnover, kip your dip, all of that. Make sure someone has an eye on these things so you can just get to work. Welcome to Misfit HQ. I'm Drew, that's Hunter, and we are here to talk to you about 23.1 movement efficiency tips. If you want to know how we warm up for this, that is already on our Instagram. If you want an in-depth view of the strategy of the workout, what Hunter v. Sherb was like, make sure you head to the podcast on YouTube. 23.1 is all about, in terms of movement efficiency, how these movements affect each other, and then ultimately what is gonna happen on these rings. How are you gonna feel when you get here? What are you gonna be able to accomplish? Whether that's, hey, I got my first few muscle ups, that's awesome, or all the way to the other end of, I gotta blast through these so I can see how many calories and toes to bar I'm gonna get. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start on the rower here, and if you are the type of person whose biceps pump out on the rower, which mine do personally every damn time, I know a lot of you, sort of report that to us. So as part of your warm up, as you're getting into this workout, we're gonna have you do a drill where you're basically going to get the hips and the legs involved with the row, but not the upper body, obviously, other than holding on to the handle. So Hunter's gonna go ahead and start working through that a little bit here. He's just really gonna think about what he can do on the rower with his legs and his hips. And as he starts to work into it, I'll have him try to see basically how high he can get those cals per hour. You start to realize how powerful this portion of the row is, and your ability to do this, and then eventually Hunter go ahead and full stroke. He's sort of doing that skill progression now. We know, that's good. We know that if we're using our legs and our hips, that we can head right over to those toes to bar and get to work and not go, oh shit, 9 or 10 in because of that pump. Now, as we're on the toes to bar, we're gonna head over to the rig right now. We are thinking about the efficiency of the midline. If you've done toe to bar muscle up, GHD muscle up, any of these movements where we fry those hip flexors in the midlines, then we go over to the rings, we hang, we're like, wow, upper body feels fantastic. Hips do not feel fantastic. Turnover is garbage. How do we minimize that on the toes to bar? I'm gonna have Hunter show you a couple of reps here. I'm gonna talk while he goes. He is balling up with those knees to the chest, and then he is kicking aggressively with those feet every single rep. Go ahead and come down. We know that it can be tempting. You see certain athletes doing it, doing that pike where they're basically just folding in half and not bending at the knee. You will regret using that style of toe to bar once you get over to the rings. Now we're gonna move over to the wall balls. A lot of people within this workout are gonna see 40. It's gonna be a really big deal. A lot of strategies. We can do 4 sets of 10. We can do 1 big set into small sets. But really what I'm looking for as a coach when I'm watching an athlete go is them, once again, thinking about the fact that they've got a bunch of cleans and then the muscle up. So he's gonna go ahead and start doing wall balls here. And I'm going to watch at how aggressively his knee angle and his hip angle open up every single time. When he's doing that, we really know that he's got the ability to use his lower half. Go ahead and put the ball down. The second thing that we're gonna look for, don't worry, you don't need to demo. Hunter has just done 23.1. So we wanna make sure that we're not doing the pec deck on the ball. We wanna be underneath it. We wanna be efficient in throwing the ball up nice and high with that leg drive. We don't wanna have to get the upper body really involved too much. Now we're gonna head over to the barbell. Time under tension is the name of the game when it comes to the barbell here. I'm gonna have Hunter do a couple of reps, and I want you to watch what happens with his torso in the second half of the movement. Good. Stays dynamic, right? When we're thinking about something closer to a muscle clean, we can take our minds over to the Olympic lifting community. When you watch them pass through the hip on a muscle clean, it's that snapping motion that really gets them up into that position. It's quick and it really is less grip. We drop the barbell. Most people are going to be going through singles for this whole workout. So really try to minimize time under tension and make sure that someone is there watching you and making sure that you don't get sort of lazy and slower as we get into the higher rep schemes, because that will come back to bite you. Last but not least, we don't even need to go over to the rings, okay? The accumulation of fatigue in basically every possible muscle group is what happens within this workout. You go over to the rings, after a set or two, you feel like you haven't been there before. When you are warming up your muscle ups, make sure you've got a coach nearby, someone who's talking you through this workout, and they pay attention to the way that you move when you're fresh and you're efficient. You want them to think about that when they're watching you on the rings. So workout will try to trick you. Your grip is gonna be gone, your pressing is gonna be gone a little bit, your hip flexors are gonna be fried, heart rate's gonna be really high when you first get over to the rings. You have to continue to move in the most efficient way possible, know what that feels like, and then just make sure you have someone else there to really watch you go through these reps. And as you're chipping away and they start to get more and more challenging, we don't want them to be ugly, so that's gonna be significantly harder for you. Make sure you're thinking about all of these things when you're warming up, going through, making sure all the movements feel good. And again, it's really great to have sort of that non-judge buddy or coach there to talk you through these things, to remind you of these things as you're going, because if you're focusing on movement efficiency, you're not really thinking about the fact that your heart rate's probably at 170, 180, 270, 280, somewhere in that range. So again, think about these tips. Warm up is already on Instagram. Full breakdown is on our YouTube channel, the podcast. Good luck. We'll see you next week.